Humanity is driving global environmental change and has pushed us into a new geological epoch, the Anthropocene. In 2016, a new record of 1.1 degrees above pre-industrial records was set. The global emission of carbon dioxide has increased by 50% since 1990. Some of the most adverse effects of climate change will be in developing countries. Climate action is the 13th Sustainable Development Goal. It has been split into 4 sub-goals that work together to achieve the aim of the main goal.
In 2013 alone, there were 330 reported disasters triggered by geophysical and meteorological hazards, affecting 108 countries and 96.5 million people. Climate change presents the single biggest threat to development, and its widespread, unprecedented impacts disproportionately burden the poorest. This is because the extent of a disaster depends on the magnitude of the hazard and the vulnerability of the population it impacts. As developing countries have fewer technological means of defence and preparation, the effects of the disaster are almost always more prevalent in these areas. With climate changing at such a rapid rate and causing such dramatic socioeconomic and environmental impacts, the first of the Sustainable Development Goals sub-targets against climate change is becoming increasingly vital. Target 13.1, taking urgent action to combat climate change and its impacts. Reducing disaster risk and increasing the resilience of communities to natural hazards can severely reduce the magnitude of disasters and its impacts. The key areas focused on in the goals are developing early warning systems and the encouragement of governments in developing societies to address urban risk and to incorporate disaster risk reduction in their respective national plans. The majority of help and assistance is provided by international governments and NGOs through community-based disaster risk reduction projects. Schemes are run in areas of high vulnerability such as development of hazard maps, warning systems and action plans. The success of the programme made by the goals is measured using the following indicators. 1. The number of countries with national and local disaster risk reduction strategies, and 2. The number of deaths, missing people and people affected by disasters per 1,000 people.
The following target calls for integrating climate change measures into national policies, strategies and planning are realised by ensuring that countries are unconstrained by climate change, enabling them to achieve better health and well-being for their populations. Strategies to reduce the impact of climate change will reduce pressures on national health budgets and deliver potentially large cost savings. For the successful implementation of Sustainable Development Goals, their inclusion and mainstreaming international policies, plans and strategies will be crucial. There are a number of countries that have communicated the establishment of an integrated strategy which increases the ability to adapt to the adverse impacts of climate change. The period from 2011 to 2015 was the hottest on record, with sea ice reaching its lowest levels. The landmark Paris Agreement, signed in April 2016 by 175 member states, attempts to mitigate climate change and accelerate and intensify actions and investments needed for a sustainable, low-carbon future.
The second sub-goal was to improve education on climate change mitigation, adaptation, impact reduction and early warning. However, this is difficult as adaptation means different things in different places. In affluent countries, climate change is having fairly benign effects that can be combated using various means. Developing nations face greater vulnerability because of their reliance on agriculture and lower financial capacity to adapt. Education helps young people understand and address the impact of climate change and encourages them to change their attitudes and behaviour. An example of how education is being used is the UN project Protecting Our Planet's Lungs. Rangers from the National Service of Natural Protected Areas work with 10 native communities in Peru to protect over 400,000 hectares of Amazon rainforest. It is said protecting the rainforest is one of the most effective ways to combat climate change due to the natural feedback mechanisms.
It is estimated that $1.4 trillion is needed annually to reach all goals. It is crucial to act on developing nations. It is estimated that anthropogenic greenhouse gases from these nations will rise from 30% to 60% of the world total by 2050. Target 13.4. This target hopes to reach an annual fund of $100 billion by 2020 and will be used to promote mechanisms for effective climate change mitigation and planning strategies in developing nations and small island states. One such strategy is the use of drones in the Maldives to create 3D maps of the islands, allowing accurate understanding as to what mitigation planning can be applied and where.